Welcome back to Getting Made. Today I'm talking with film composer Corey Martin. You can hear Corey's music in Apple's short film The Lost Voice, directed by Taika Waititi, and you can hear his music in the feature film Gold and Green. Real quick, a thank you to this episode's sponsors, Nature's Wildberry. Turn sour sweet. If you've got a sweet tooth and you're interested in maintaining a healthy lifestyle, take a look at Nature's Wildberry. You can find them on socials or search for their Shark Tank episode, or visit natureswildberry.com. Jaybird Coffee. If you love coffee, pick up some delicious chocolate truffle coffee at jaybirdcoffee.com. Airwolf Drones. Be it commercials, feature films, or live broadcast, Airwolf Drones has you covered from the air. Check out airwolfdrones.com. It's very evident from this conversation that Corey lives and breathes music. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with film composer Corey Martin. Yeah, we're talking about putting aside egos. That's a major thing.
Yeah. I mean, I just honestly, in my experience, I think confidence is incredibly useful,
Yes.
being believing in yourself when that's not natural, or when you feel as if other people aren't believing in you. But ego just seems useless to me. It's just kind of been, I've been a part of so many things where you can actively see it getting in the way, and it's making something worse and making something, you can watch it in real time turn from something that's going to connect with the people that are going to watch it to kind of morph itself into oh, this is kind of about you now. You know what I mean? It's not, it's for you. It's not necessarily for the people who are going to enjoy the product. And I don't know. I really, I mean, I think when you're a composer, I think the ego gets knocked out of you pretty quickly, because it is such it's an isolated job, and a lot of times it's kind of you and the director, and you'll go out a scene 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 20 times before you get it right sometimes, and by version 3, you're sort of just like okay, I can't just will this to happen. So let's lock in, let's give it effort, and think outside the box, and don't let my genius get in the way. It's I think it's hard not to bring, no baggage to a project, but I think that baggage goes away pretty quickly when you realize it's not helping you, because on every project there is sort of a survival mode that kicks in. And suddenly you're pure instinct.
Yeah. Yeah. Instinct is such an interesting thing because it serves a story so well. If you remain instinctual, you can sort of you feel it, so the audience. It's almost like a truth meter. The audience is going to feel it if you felt it in the moment.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So how do you like to work? Do you like to have the director in the room with you? Do you like to have space? How do you like to do that?
I would say I prefer to have space. I mean, that might be because I think I've had a director sit in my room less than 10 times. It's, either they live on the other side of town, or in a different state, or in a different country. It's it's not, it's usually not possible, but I do think there is I get a little bit of performance anxiety if I feel like someone's watching me compose, because then it's I don't feel the same freedom to make mistakes and have bad ideas out loud.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And not that I want to hide that from them. It's just I think we're going to get to where we want to go faster if you just let me have some dumb ideas.
Totally.
And then every once in a while, you'll land on something that's so outlandish that you send it to the director as a joke, and they come back to you and they say, dig in more. We love it. And those are those moments would never happen if they were behind me when I was trying to write something. If they were behind me, I would just be pulling up Ludwig Göransson and going okay, how do I sound like Ludwig Göransson? You know what I mean? It's a different thing and gives you that space to have a say in the art. And I don't know, it's important for me, just to reiterate, just to have as many bad ideas out
Yeah.
loud as possible. I don't know any other way to do it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, the reframing of that is like, it's not a negative. It's just one of the necessary things. You just
Yeah.
got to get past it, and then
Yeah.
you get the gold. You know.
Well, and it's also, I think it's incredibly boring to watch. Like, if you're a director, just watching some dude in his box,
Yeah.
you know, just like spending hours and hours and hours trying to find the right violin sample, you know,
Right.
at some point that would get pretty mind numbing, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think you're probably right for 99% of directors.
Okay.
I think I'm the outlier.
All right.
I find it endlessly fascinating because I'm just like, oh, how's this going to come together?
Yeah.
But I also like some very niche things. I was going to ask you, because you kind of mentioned it a little bit. How do you get around like temp, like addiction or temp love? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because sometimes they'll cut to something in the timeline, and now they're like, ooh, we really like the way this feels or whatever. Like, how do you approach that?
It's one of the great all-time battles. It really is. Like, I'm not as adamantly opposed to temp score as a lot of composers that I know and admire and respect. I know that there are a lot of composers who will go in interviews and be like, temp is the death of music, you know? I don't feel that way. I feel like it does a really strong, it does a lot of the heavy lifting early on, and like, okay, what's the mood? What's the tone? What's kind of like the palette? The best scenario is when they put in a temp and it's like a B minus, and the director and the editor are like, hey, this is like kind of it, but like make it yours thing. But there are a lot of projects just inevitably that you are chasing that temp. And that's a real struggle, because you're trying to chase someone else's moment of brilliance, which doesn't leave your moment of brilliance like that. So it's hard. A lot of times the first thing I'll do is find the tempo of the temp, and just start there. You know, they like the pacing of this. They like, that's kind of always the biggest thing for me, is that they'll fall in love with the pacing more than the music. And then I try not to listen to it too much. I'll listen to it once or twice with the scene just to get an idea. And then maybe like a couple days of work down the road, I'll kind of A/B it and see where I ended up and see if it's even in the same ballpark. Oftentimes it's not quite, you know, you kind of go off in a different direction that also works. And sometimes the director comes back and goes, we really like the temp. And other times the director goes, hey, this is great. I never would have gone that direction with this, but it's working. You know, I think that's the best note you can get, is like, I don't know why, but this is like resonating. You know, I think that's sort of a job well done in a perfect world. But yeah, temp is, ask me again in 10 years, honestly. Like, it's so real. It's in every aspect of things that I work on. It's in trailers, it's in advertising, it's in films, it's in TV, like temp, because they got to edit to something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's so interesting how proximity, or, you know, just exposure, it just sort of, the repetition of it sort of locks them, you know? And I say them, I mean me sometimes.
Yeah,
you know
sure,
what I mean?
yeah.
But
well, and that's the thing, is it's like, it's no director or editor or producer's fault that they fall in love with the temp. Like, they probably fell in love with an amazing piece of music, and it's resonating. And that's what we're chasing, is we're chasing that resonance with the creators, which therefore is going to be the resonance with the audience. Like, that's what makes art. That's what makes beauty, is that like connection to something. And so I don't, you know, I don't want to like push back against that feeling at all, because it's there, you know? And so it is a really fine line, because number one, I don't want to get anybody sued. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, I would love to rip off Max Richter every movie. That would be fantastic. I can't just get that close every time. You know what I mean? It's at some point you're doing Max a disservice there. So it's that fine line, and it's nobody's fault if you get into a place of temp love. But it is the composer's job to dig everyone out of that hole. And it's it's a very difficult part of the job, but there's not very many easy parts of being a composer. So it's filmmaking is a tough business and hard work in the trenches all the time, as you know. Like, you are going to be tearing your hair out a lot of the time, if not most of the time.
Yeah.
And then you get to a place where now you're watching it in theaters and you forget about all the pain,
Yeah.
and it's just joy again.
Yeah.
And you wear your battle scars with pride. It's this terribly toxic cyclical thing we're all like obsessed with.
Yeah.
But we're doing it.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, it feels like this is like everybody who I talk to that's been doing it for a long time. It's like, this is all there's ever been for me.
Right.
I think that's kind of what keeps you in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
there was no other choice.
Yeah.
It was like it was designed for you. Yeah.
Honestly, you just feel like, anytime, my wife's in the business as well. And anytime we get burnt out, we drive around town and we see a sunset, or we do something that's just like old magic Hollywood. And we're just like, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to get back in.
Yeah.
I'm ready to mildly hate my life for a few weeks once again. You know what I mean?
I think it's so imperative to get out of the bubble.
100%.
Get out of LA. Go. Sometimes I'll take a road trip to Utah.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just like get that wonder, get that awe, get that reset, and then come back and dig in again. And man, because it can wear on you for sure. And also you need like fresh ears and fresh eyes. And
100%. Yeah.
Man.
If you don't give yourself that space, I mean, I've got loads of stories about like you get to the end of a day and you think that everything you've written for the last 2 weeks is absolute trash.
Right.
and then you go to sleep thinking the worst of yourself, and then you wake up the next day and you go, oh, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just how it is, man.
Yeah. It's perspective, you just need that time.
Yeah.
So your wife is in the business. Do you guys collaborate? You guys work together? Oh, cool.
Yeah, we do a lot. We don't get to do it on every project. She's got her things and I've got my projects. But the movie. So we just released a movie in January.
Is this Green and Gold?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So Natalie...
It sounds and looks gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So Natalie, my wife, she's the singing voice of the main character in the film.
I was like, I watched the trailer and I was like, that voice,
that's her.
Like, seriously moved me. So,
wow. That's Natalie. She's a freak of nature, man. She's so talented.
Yeah.
And then she, if you listen to the score, there's vocals throughout almost every cue.
Mm-hmm.
That's all her.
Wow.
So I say we co-compose the movie. She pushes back on that. And she's like, well, I came in for 5 minutes and did some oohs and ahs, and then you were in there for months. Not really, because I didn't have that much time. But
what a score. You lucked out. Like, what a great collaborator. I mean,
oh, it's amazing. I mean, we've done so much work like that. And she is really, she's somebody that I can lean on for ideas and for creativity, because, I think a lot of composers are kind of like anxious little stress balls.
Artists in general.
Yeah. And, I'm sitting in here thinking my life's going to end if I don't get this cue right, and she's inside doing something else. She's redecorating a room in the house, and then I knock on the door with pale as a ghost, and I'm like, help.
Yeah.
And she'll come out and have 3 ideas, and then, okay, on my merry way. And it unlocked something.
Oh man. That's the best.
It's like, I don't know if I could do it without that, because you have to, it can get really lonely really fast if you let it.
Huge, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, dude. Well, what a blessing.
Yeah.
She's got an incredible voice. I was actually going to ask you, like, how do you source your vocals? Because like that was such a strong voice that I heard.
And I walk inside. Yeah, that's how I source my vocals. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
No, and I have a lot of collaborators that are amazing singers. I'm not a singer.
Mm-hmm.
I have done it embarrassingly many times, including on my scores. But there's something I have always really, really connected with the human voice in general.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's been a huge part of my career thus far, is like interesting ways of using vocals, and not, because there will be moments of obviously major trends in vocals. You know,
Mhm.
you have The White Lotus and you've got Squid Game, you know,
Mhm.
all those amazing uses by incredibly talented composers, some of the best in the world.
Mhm.
But it's like the voice is one of the most limitless
Oh, yeah.
instruments
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
And like the same person can make a million different varieties of sounds, and then you go to the next person and the world is opened back up. You know,
Mhm.
it's like I'm just endlessly fascinated by the voice. And I do think that there's something like um there's something that makes you feel safe.
Oh, I feel like it's the oxytocin release, right? You're just
100%.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
like it's when you hear a human voice, you know, in my experience in scores,
Mhm.
you know, I think Euphoria is a great example. Labyrinth's amazing work on that show.
Mhm.
You hear his incredible falsetto kind of weave in and out of that, and it's
Mhm.
like you hear it, and suddenly you're not in danger for a second.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Reassuring.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you're just like, I don't know why, but I'm okay right now. You know,
Yeah.
and maybe it's like the mother thing, or just kind of like parental comfort. I don't know, but like, yeah, it's I don't know what it is, but I have always connected with it,
Yeah.
and the collaborators that I work with, it seems like every time I start
Mhm.
incorporating a lot of vocals into
Mhm.
my work, they really resonate with it.
Mhm.
So I just keep going.
Well, there's no doubt that it strikes a chord like deep within us. Like I mean, I know that the practice of humming and even
Yeah.
singing can help release your stress or, lower your stress. And there's got to be some significant science behind it. I also know that like any sort of wind instrument, whether
Mm.
it be a flute or whatever it may be, you can feel the breathing of the person, and it just feels more organic.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh, this is a primitive. I feel bagpipes even. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I got that Celtic ancestry, so
Oh,
like
same.
when I
Yeah.
hear the bagpipes, I'm like, I feel the hair
Yeah.
pick up.
Yeah.
It's so
It's
nuts.
emotional.
Yeah.
Like we were just in Scotland last year, at the end of last year, and we were walking around Edinburgh. And it's like you turn the corner and there's a traditional bagpipe
Yeah.
just like happening, and like Natalie and I are looking at each other like, are you about to cry?
Right.
Like in the middle of the
Yeah,
city?
it just like hits you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something really there.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is, it's composers a lot of times when we're writing, we're writing with robots, we're writing with samples and
Mhm.
things like that. And it's funny, like the limits of humans playing the music is kind of where the beauty is.
Absolutely.
It's like,
yeah.
because I'll write. I mean, I've definitely been burned by this before. You write horns, you write, your tubas, your trombones, your French horns, and your trumpets, and you write them wall to wall for 90 seconds,
Mhm.
and then you get to the session, and they go, we have to breathe, right? This isn't a violin. It's
Right.
not a piano. We have to breathe between things.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, okay. So put a quarter note rest at the end of that bar, we'll pick up breath right there. And then all of a sudden the piece has life to it.
Yeah.
It's not just,
Right.
it's
Not just
like
droning on and on.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden it's like you're moving, you're breathing with
Yeah.
the piece of music. And
Yeah.
that's like, that's where the magic is. The magic is often, I don't want to completely discredit myself, but so often the magic is not necessarily in the writing; it's in the performance of it.
Yeah, yeah. We have something similar for editors or directors. It's like we have to give audience members a break, otherwise it's just too much. It's like you have about a 3-minute period of where you can handle so much action, and then you need to drop off because we're just not designed to burn out.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I love it when a piece like that comes to life. Like you can feel it in like like Last of the Mohicans or any of those sort of like major scores where it's just like.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, so you were saying how like sometimes you get weird with it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the scores that I listen to often when we're off on a job is like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that composer.
Yeah.
And I think he's got like an electric guitar in there, which you would think would not place at all in a Western, right? You're like, that doesn't make any sense, but it totally works,
man.
and it's iconic.
Yep.
So Like, do you ever have a battle sometimes with directors where they're like, we want to keep it like all the instruments of the day, and you're like, chill.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, and then you do what the director wants to do,
Right.
because it is very much like, I think it's a great thing that we're all serving a greater vision, and sometimes you do check your ideas at the door,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But yeah, every once in a while you'll get it, because I try stuff all the time. What's the dumbest thing I could put in here and make the director not laugh at me, sort of
Right,
thing.
right.
Because you always try to something that I've learned from, like, I've never met the man, but watching Hans Zimmer interviews and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, like, um, you always like to go into a project with a big idea,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? Okay, Interstellar, we're going to space,
Mm-hmm.
huge church pipe organs.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be our North Star.
Mm-hmm. Again, with the breathing
Yeah,
because of the pipes. Yeah.
right. And if you're Hans, you'll probably get to go all the way down that road.
Mm-hmm.
But so often, it's like you start with a big idea, then it changes. It
Mm-hmm.
morphs. It's not working with picture. It's not fitting, it's not resonating with the rest of the team on something, even if it is resonating with you. But there's always those little things that were like nuggets in your big idea always find their way in somehow. And so you do end up, like, as long as you don't go into every project going, I'm going to write the most bland version of film music I could possibly write. As long as you, like, bring a little bit of quirkiness, I refer to it as like punk rock, just like, hey, I don't know, let's try that. I like to bring that into everything that I do, because it always finds its way in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's somehow, it might be a 3-second cutaway cue, but it's like, it's there. What I mean?
That's for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. I was going to ask you about this too, because, when it comes to Nolan and Zimmer, sometimes Nolan will just be like, he'll give him like what the story's about, like one sentence. It's like, oh, it's about the relationship between a man and his son.
Yeah.
And then Hans will go off and do that thing. How do you like to, like, if in your ideal scenario, like, because I have a showdown sometime with my composer where I'm like, hey, I really need your music to inspire my visuals.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's like, I really need your visuals to inspire my music.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a standoff, like a Sergio Leone standoff. So how, like, in your ideal scenario, how does that play out?
I think I'm somebody who I will work with whatever you've got. If there's a script, I love to read the script, unless they don't want me to, which doesn't happen to me, but I know that happens. And if you've got visuals, like, fantastic, I'll work against those. That'd be great. But I do a lot of projects, especially in advertising, where you'll just kind of have like a shared reference point, or, hey, we're kind of thinking like this vibe, and it's less so like instruments or tempo or anything like that, more like descriptive language, or I really like a mood board, something there. And then all sort of like what I like to do in those situations is, because I'm a big, like I said before, I react in real time. That's very much part of my process. And so I'll find similar images, or I'll use the images they give me, and I'll just put them above my workstation and just kind of always be checking, like, do I feel like I'm on the right track here? Because it's very easy to sort of just like accidentally veer way off course because you don't have something tying you to the project necessarily. And so as long as I have some sort of reference point or shared language, or I'll throughout the day, hey, what do you think about something like this? I'll send them a 10-second clip of what I wrote, or I'll send them some score that I was thinking of, kind of going down that direction. That communication, I think, is really key in those, because I do think you find a lot of, so many of my favorite scores were created that way. Just like, go off and be a strange composer and like, let's
cook.
cook. Let him cook.
Yeah.
A lot of my favorite scores have been made that way. So, honestly, I would love to try it in the film scoring world. Everything that I've done up to this point, for the most part, you work against animatics a lot and stuff like that, but you have an idea of what it's going to look like. I would love to try it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of times, like, there will be times that, because sometimes we'll write original songs for movies and stuff like that. Those are almost always done beforehand, before they shoot anything.
Oh, okay.
Because they they do end up sort of building movies around set pieces if there's like a song or something like that. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
So that I've had the taste of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But in those cases, I've read the scripts and I know who the main actors are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on set many years ago, and I saw this director that had all the accolades and everything, and he was playing music to like get everybody in the zone.
Yeah.
It's like I was like, oh man, that's brilliant.
I think that's great.
It just sets the pulse, and like everybody gets on the same page, and boom, cuts it. All right, let's start whenever you're ready. Because I feel like he can, the sort of like loud AD sort of cliche thing where they're like action and all that sort of stuff. It can really kill the vibe. So if you can just like set the tone, roll cameras. Clint Eastwood does this also because I used to watch him. I snuck onto one of his sets many years ago, and
good for you.
And he just literally just like rolls the cameras, and he's like, all right, whenever you're ready, go ahead and begin. And then you just go right into it, and then it's just like a flow.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's really cool. So you were talking about the commercial shorts and everything, and I saw your the Apple piece. Which that, first of all, huge fan of like where the wild things are. So to me, that was like that's so close to that, and I felt so comforted in watching that. And of course, Taika he's such a master at that, having that boyhood sort of story.
Yeah.
That ending shot was just like, right in the heart. That was fantastic.
Thank you, man.
So when you're putting something together like that, which has that sort of like, bedtime story sort of vibe to it, like how do you correspond? Like how does that work for you?
Well, so that was an interesting project. They so that piece had existed before in a kind of not a primitive fashion, but the bones of the piece were out there before they shot anything. Okay. So it was an existing piece of music that we were able to get in front of the music supervisor on the project. And then she sent that over to Taika, who liked it, said, yeah, let's go with this, and we'll like use this as the baseline and then score the commercial with it. So the piece that exists in, streaming right now is not, it's kind of close, but it's a pretty different piece than what ends up in the final Apple ad. So for that one, we kind of already set the vibe. Like the vibe of the commercial was set because the original piece that we had written, and again, that's my wife and I made that track together. We had already kind of done that heavy lifting of like, okay, we are the brief now. Now let's be composers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was really, really fun. It was hard work. I think we ended up working on that one for probably 5 or 6 weeks for like a 2-minute piece. It's just like the edit is constantly tweaking. I'll never forget the moment between, because when I first got the call, it was the craziest day of my life. It was like I signed this, and I just get an email that says, "Hey, we're sending you an NDA." I went, "Okay,
fair enough,
you got it." And then they said, "Can you hop on a Zoom tomorrow for Project Undisclosed?"
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, great. And then so I hop on Zoom, and there's a music supervisor that I work with a lot, and then the music supervisor from Apple, and she goes, "Okay, so we're making a commercial with Taika Waititi, and we want to use your music." And I don't think I said anything for like 30 seconds. I think I just stared at her.
You glitched.
Yeah, I really, because it was like, at that point in my life, it's like I spent so many years like the composer in the shadows, and still very much am. And it was like the idea that somebody of that caliber would even hear my music to begin with, let alone like be willing to go into a collaboration like that on a piece. Yeah, it's a commercial, it's an ad, but like we very much consider that a short film.
I want to see the full thing.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I want to see a whole story, because like I don't know if you saw this, but they just sold 3 different YouTube channels of like childhood stories for like something like $3 billion.
Wow.
Because they're going to develop them with toys and all that sort of stuff. It's like, I want to see that.
Yeah.
as a series.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Apple, come on.
Yeah. And then so I got when we first started working on it, we had the animatic,
Mm-hmm.
and the animatic was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was illustrated and really well done. Like, I can't speak highly enough of all of the people that work at Apple on the creative side. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're the real deal. I
Mm-hmm.
was blown away by, I had, when I was doing notes back and forth with the music team over there, like, uh, Abby Hendricks, she's the music supervisor on that project,
Mm-hmm.
and she would speak to me in what's called solfege, which is like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la,
Oh,
ti,
okay.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was literally just communicating with me with direct musical language and knowledge, and knowing exactly where she needed something to go and to resonate. And it was like, I've never really experienced that before. Most of the projects that I'm working on, it's like, let's make it more purple,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, and why would I expect them to know any different? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to tell you, oh, maybe you should use this lens. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really cool. And then, so I'm working with the animatic, and then, hey, we shot it, we're going to send it to you. And the first time I saw the footage of that, it was genuinely one of the coolest moments of my entire career.
That's awesome.
And then it was like a month more of hard work.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I feel like those challenges, though, they are such milestones.
Yeah.
You know, I really hope
Yeah.
that they can develop that into a full blown series, because I would totally tune into that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that like that ad didn't transform my life overnight, but it really opened a lot of doors very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll always be so grateful for that piece.
Mm-hmm. Back in the day, in like, I want to say like 2005, when YouTube was just like fresh off, you know?
Yeah.
I used to tell all my friends, I was like, there is this group called Blue Tongue Films, these Australians and New Zealanders, and they are making some amazing short films. And everybody was like, oh, okay, whatever, we'll check it out. And then, of course, it's like the Egerton brothers, Taika, Greg Fraser, and they're just making these like killer shorts.
Yeah.
And I remember watching those and being like, these people know what they're doing, and they're charting forward. Like, this is the way, right? Because they were using YouTube as a way to put their work out there, and now they're just like killing it.
Yeah. I remember I got a window. I first was kind of aware of like that like New Zealand scene growing up, because we would go to my grandpa Larry's house in Lodi, California every year for Thanksgiving. And he was like the first person who had like a DVR or like on demand or something. And I remember my brother and I were like sitting in the room where my grandpa watches his sports, and we clicked on this thing called The Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, they're the best.
HBO special. That night changed my life.
This is like the story of two guys who start at the bottom, they stay at the bottom, and they end at the bottom. They're the best.
Yeah. And I like, if my brother and I still write music together to this day, and you could trace it all the way back to Flight of the Conchords. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're so funny. I mean, if you can tell a great joke, then you're a great storyteller. Like, that is the sort of base structure for storytelling, is a great joke. Yeah, some of Taika's early work, the short films that came out of like Blue Tongue Films, were just, man, they were so good. I don't know if you've ever seen that one where there's the kids in the cars. It's like, hey, stupid girl.
I don't think I have.
He's so good. He's so good about like taking that sort of child innocence and just playing with it.
Yeah.
So good. I met him a couple years back. I think it was 2 years back or something like that. And we have a mutual friend and a mixed martial artist, a fighter.
Oh, wow.
And so I was talking to him about Mark. This guy named Mark Hunt is like a legend.
Okay.
Legend. Like, you said you like baseball.
Yes.
Okay, so remember how Ken Griffey Jr. would hit like a home run and he would just walk, right? It was like a walk-off home run.
Icon.
Yeah. Mark Hunt was the equivalent of that for mixed martial arts.
Fantastic.
This dude would just like, he would touch people, they would go down, and he would act like it was like a walk in the park. And everybody responded to that. He was like the people's champ, you know, and he fought for decades. I mean, he fought in Japan. He was huge. He fought in the U.S. and he was huge. And I was blessed to chat with him because I was covering another fighter that he was the opponent to. But we grew close because I did similar to this. I just asked him his story.
Yeah.
And for hours and hours, he just went
Yeah.
and shared everything with
so
me.
Cool.
And I was like, holy cow, this guy's got such a crazy backstory. Yeah. And it is like, it made so much sense why he became the fighter that he was. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess Taika was poised at one point to do his story.
Okay.
And I was like, man, please tell Mark Hunt's. I actually have Mark Hunt's book, like right over there.
Okay, great.
It's called Born to Fight.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ken Griffey Jr., if you ever want to spill your life story to me, I would be thrilled.
Do you know he's a photographer now?
I do, yeah. No, a good friend of mine is a diehard Mariners fan, so nice. I'm always up to date on the comings and goings of Ken Griffey Jr. and Ichiro Suzuki and all the others.
I love how all these baseball Hall of Famers, they're like, we're photographers now.
Yeah.
It's like Randy Johnson, Ken
they gotta
Griffey
do
Jr.
something, you know?
Yeah, they gotta stay active.
Imagine if like if your body couldn't make film anymore. What would you do?
Yeah.
You know,
watch movies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd probably just like bake macarons or something.
Yeah. Oh man, well, dude, that's so great. I mean, yeah. If Apple can get on that, because I feel like the potential for that short, it could totally easily be a series. The end note there was just so powerful. I was so touched by that. I feel like all these major companies, like what they do is they find these artists that have like this authentic beating heart, and then they're like, all right, just tell a story, and then we'll just put our logo at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, fair enough.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Thanks for the gig, though.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Wow, dude, what a blessing to get pulled into that.
It's so crazy, man.
And you were saying like how she was speaking to you like literally in music speak.
Yeah.
And then you've done a couple of things with HBO recently.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by their executives because I feel like all of the HBO executives, they seem to be creatives. Mm-hmm. They seem to like be so they have their finger on the pulse. Mm-hmm. They know how to speak creative speak and all that stuff. That's such a powerful way to get the right talent involved.
Yeah. Can
you talk a little bit about you had worked on that project with the Duplass Brothers producing. It was the Australian film,
Last Stop Larrimah.
Yeah.
Can
you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course.
What was the process for that?
So that was such a cool project, man. So I had originally met the director is this guy named Thomas Tancred, and this was his first kind of directorial debut. He was before that he was like a cameraman, doing a lot of reality TV and stuff like that, and just kind of wanted to like take a flyer on making this weird thing. And so he said he was back and forth between he lives in Venice, and he was back and forth between Venice, LA. And he was going back and forth for 5 years, and he was staying at this little shack in Larrimah in Australia. In the middle. So the premise of the story for people who haven't seen it is it's like I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, but it's like a population in this town
17.
Like 17, and one of them goes missing under suspicion of murder. And he's not the most liked person. Exactly. So that one came in. They were they were fighting against some temp music, and I think that they were going to go originally kind of like a library documentary style route on that, but then they were kind of like, what if we try some composers' voices on that? So I wasn't the only composer on that one. A friend of mine, Randon Purcell, was also a composer on that project. I think in the end he probably wrote more than I did on it. But that was really fun. That was like we would go back and forth just over Zoom with the director, even though I lived within driving distance, but it was just easier that way. And it's like he had been living with this film for 4 years by the time I ever saw a single clip, right? And when I first got it, I was kind of like, what is this? I had no idea what I was getting into. And he just kept going like, let's just make it really strange and eerie and kind of off the wall. And he was the classic of like, I don't know why this is working, but it's working.
Right.
So just keep going.
Right.
It was one of those projects.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was such a fun score because it was, I'd record my voice into something and then reverse it through some like galaxy tape thing. It was like just kind of using the weirdest techniques. I'll never forget, I'm not a very good string bass player, but I have one. And at one point he was like, we want it to sound like a string quartet, but like kind of shitty. And I'm like, I can do that.
Done.
I can do that. So I wrote out like nice, I'm trained composer counterpoint for this piece that's like a third of the way through the documentary, and then just like hacked it on my big upright bass where I haven't had good technique in probably 10 years.
You can feel the tension and like the stress of it. You're like,
oh, exactly. Yeah. You're like, ooh, is this guy gonna pull off this performance the whole time? I think it worked, but jury's out. But yeah, so then that project ended up getting a premiere at South by Southwest.
Oh yeah.
So I flew out for that, and that was so cool. And because that was the first time I've really ever been at a festival like that. It's like very much like. I'm very much consider myself like a starter, a beginner in the industry. I really do, because it's like where the thing I want to be involved in many things like that. I get so much energy from like seeing the work that you put in out in the real world. Yeah. And so like flying to Austin and going and see it. Of course we were a 2 p.m. screening. We weren't exactly the marquee moment of that.
You were there.
That's
you were
right.
invited.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But oh man, my favorite thing about that was so Thomas is the director. He's such a down to earth guy, like such just a normal dude. He's a director. He's crazy. They're all crazy in their own way, and I have so much admiration, because it's like, you mean you were going back and forth between here and Australia for 5 years to put this out? Yeah. You have to be a little nutty, right?
Sometimes I think they just don't count the cost. And when I say they, I mean me,
Yeah,
it's
of course.
Like, you do without thinking, and then you take the toll, you take the damage, and then like your body recovers a little bit, and you're like, oh, let's do it again.
Yeah. I admire it so much though. Because it's like, I feel like, obviously when you're doing this freelance in the world, you're taking risks. Of course you are as a composer. But the risks that directors take is really something to be marveled at. And it's like when those creations come, when we finish a project like that and I'm able to sit down with the director, I'm like, you realize you just pulled off a miracle, right?
Right. Yeah.
Every single time. Yeah. It's a miracle to me that it all comes together. But so anyways, we're in Austin.
Yes.
We're in Austin. I'm out there with my wife, and the whole time we're like, okay, I've got to take this guy out to lunch, because we had never met in person until that night, until the premiere.
Okay. And you worked together for almost 4 years.
Well, no, I only was on that project for like probably a month.
Oh,
maybe.
Got you. Okay.
And so I met him at the premiere, shook hands, got a drink with the team, but and then we were there for a couple more days because there were a couple more screenings. And so I got his number, I texted him, and he's so busy, he's doing interviews, he's doing the whole circuit that like, that's what a machine like Duplass can kind of put you on. And and so he's doing it. He's doing the thing. And he's like, hey, I've got a window. He texted me and he's like, meet me here in 45 minutes sort of vibe. And literally Natalie and I are at lunch somewhere else. And we're like, well, better get out of here and go eat a second lunch, right? So we close out and we immediately zoom over to this place, and we're thinking like, okay, big Hollywood HBO director, we're going to buy him lunch. Like, this is going to cost some money, but like, we're going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be worth it, tax write-off. Let's do it. And we pull up to this place, and it's like literally it's a diner in the middle of Austin. Yeah. And Thomas comes in and he sits down in this booth and he goes, you just got to get the queso, man. And I look at the menu and the queso costs $7.
Right.
And he goes, it'll feed all of us. And so this guy, we're thinking, okay, we're going to break the bank for this guy. This guy gets a water. I get a water. Natalie gets a water, and $7 worth of queso. Nice. And we sat there and we chatted for an hour and a half, mostly about The Sopranos.
Oh, nice.
But I'll never forget one thing that Thomas said to me. I was like, "Hey, so are you going to go to every you're going to go to every screening of this thing?" And he looks at me and he goes, "I might never get to make another movie in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to everything."
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time you do this is such a gift.
Yeah.
And not only to do it, but then to go see it out in the world at a festival
Yeah.
where people are paying to go see your movie
Yeah.
more than they would pay to watch it on streaming.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a special thing.
Oh, yeah.
And any chance that you get to, do it. You know, and I've really taken that with me.
Oh, yeah.
And I've flown across the world watching my project, because it's
Yeah.
like, this could end at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that when it inevitably does, I got the most out of it
Mm-hmm.
that I could,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I love it so much.
Well, it's the right mentality. Even if it doesn't end,
Yeah.
it's the right mentality
Yeah.
because you're putting so much care and concern into that project
Yeah.
because it could be the last.
It could be.
Yeah. That's the right mentality for sure.
But yeah, that project ended up, what's so fun is it ended up going #1 on Netflix in Australia.
Hell yeah.
And I have a screenshot of, it was right when the documentary about the Beckhams came out.
Okay.
And I have a screenshot of Last Stop Larrimah #1, Beckham #2 in Australia.
Great.
You know, it only matters to me and the people that were on the project, but it felt pretty cool.
That's awesome.
For it was probably there for like 3 days. But, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm so grateful for that project. It was such a blast.
Dude, what a win. That's awesome. Have you ever seen the Duplass brothers did that short called Hi, Hey, It's John?
No, I don't think so.
This is the best. This is one of the best shorts of all time. If you want to laugh so hard tonight, pull up this short that they shot. It's like one of their first shorts that put them on the map. And, hey, it's me, John.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, please do.
You guys are going to laugh so hard. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It was like the viral video before the internet, before YouTube, before any of that stuff. This was so funny that it made the rounds like via email.
Yeah.
It was so
The good old days.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And then he also did, Mark did a speech at South by called The Cavalry Isn't Coming. Have you seen that?
I think I have. Yeah. I've really been following what he's been up to.
Yeah.
Because, again, directors are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the risks and the experimentation that he's doing in distribution and everything right now, is like, someone's got to do it. And I admire so much that they're the ones doing it. I think it's so cool. I think it's so punk rock, and like,
well, they've charted it. They've shown that it works, you know, and that's awesome. I saw him at Sundance in January, and I stopped him because Main Street, you know, it's like literally one street. Everybody's walking on one street. I just happened to see him walking by, and I said, hey man, like, that speech, The Cavalry Isn't Coming, was so important. Thank you so much for saying what we all know to be true, which is like, it's on you. Like, you got to make it happen.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to do it for you.
Dude,
and
that goes to every level of filmmaking, every single level. Like, yeah, it's, nobody gets to sit back and rest.
No.
It's like, yeah, if you're gonna die, please take a break. You know, go to Europe, like, chill out. But as far as like, you can never lose. I mean, maybe you could never have like lost that drive or that ambition or grit or just like sheer determination to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's kind of all we have right now. You know?
Yeah. So if you've got all these things cooking, and we just had recently like all these like major AI companies came to the ASC house to sort of like show us the latest and greatest and everything. And I'll say this, like, I took a deep breath. I was like, oh, okay. Like, because it's not there yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like we've got some time. These models, the LLMs, they don't understand 3D space yet. They might understand 3D space once they have like humanoid robots that can like walk around in 3D space. But there's something about the embodiment that they haven't, the language models can't figure out the 3D space, because all these cinematographers were basically asking, hey, can you realign the camera angle, and like the prompter just couldn't figure it out. So I sighed a big sigh of relief, only because for a while there's just all this like doom and gloom of like, oh no, these things are coming to take your work and everything. But it really, to me, is just like an animation tool at best.
Sure.
It's just another tool. These people, the prompters, are like VFX pros of like over 10 years. So the learning curve's steep. It's like a huge learning curve for the user interface. How are you, like, as a musician, a composer, like, when I hear your music and everything, I'm like, this is coming from a living, breathing human being. I can feel the emotion. Like it resonates with me. How do you feel is like the state of the music right now? Do you feel like, like things are getting crazy, or do you feel like, no, just a tool?
It hasn't, I would say so far, like the thing that damaged a lot of the film music industry was like the pandemic and the strikes more than AI so far. I do think that there are certain sectors of music, some of which that I spent many years in, that I'm very concerned about. When you think about what's traditionally referred to as production music, as a place that I spent many, many years, and you have major networks signing production libraries to very big contracts every year to be able to use their library. I'm worried for those businesses, because, not to cheapen anybody's music in that space, because there's a lot of really great production music written by some of the best composers in the world. I'll never forget, I worked at a production music library, and I don't know, hopefully this won't get us in trouble, but we had a Q license for something, and we went, I don't know how to get in contact with this guy. It's this guy, Ramin Djawadi.
That's awesome.
He had written a piece probably 20 years ago for this music company, and then went on to become the biggest composer in television. And we didn't know how to give him his $30.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's like those people were in that. So it's not like this music is less than, but a lot of the music is designed to kind of be ignored.
Right.
It's designed to set a tone, be in the background. That is ripe for computers to take over it.
Sure.
That I'm very concerned about.
Yeah. And that, I mean, like his stuff just broke through the ceiling in terms of like the theme for.
Yeah.
Can I say it? Can I say it? Okay, Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can never replace that, is what I like to tell myself. But so I do think that there are definitely sectors that I'm concerned about. I hope I'm wrong. Like I hope it sucks, I like genuinely, because I have so many friends that are so talented, and I put in so many years, and just simply don't deserve to lose that type of work. Right. I generally speaking, kind of once you get out of that specific part that I'm referring to, I think that we have a really bad habit in Hollywood and in other, like the tech world as well. We think people are a lot dumber than they are. And we think that people aren't going to be able to sniff stuff out. And I get it. Like, I'm sure we'll be in a place where AI Corey Martin is indistinguishable from me. But like, even something as simple as quickly just telling them which one's which will change how they hear it.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
and we really need to stop discounting the people that we rely on to make this whole thing work, is the audience. And the audience wants to feel something, and they want to connect. And we're risking cutting off that connection to the music, to the visuals, to even something like the CGI. It's like they can sniff it out if it's not there. Like there is, even just in the music world, like tens of thousands of songs are uploaded every single day to Spotify. And certain things cut through. And those things are the things that people resonate with. So like, bulk doesn't work. Emotion works. Connection works. And if we do get to the point where that puts me out of a job because a robot is connecting with you more than I ever could, it's time to make cheese, man. Like I believe in film audiences, and I believe in music audiences. And I've never met somebody that's like, oh man, I can't wait to hear the AI version of John Williams.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the AI Anora.
Right.
Like, I have not met a single person who would be even remotely excited about that future. Maybe somebody's shareholders, but that there's been a lot of people trying, good money moves in the film world for a long time, and often they don't connect with people.
Right.
So,
yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that, because that's like the audience perspective, and then like the artist perspective is that you love making music.
I need a job, man. It's like if AI took my scoring gigs, I would still write the same music.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would still make movies.
Because what else am I going to do?
Right. I love this. I love doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
This is like, I wake up and have my coffee and stare at sheet music, and like that's fun for me. Right. I'll spend a day, I'll spend 12 hours in the studio, and then, my wife's out getting dinner with friends, and I'll go, okay, maybe I'll watch the Taylor Swift Eras tour tonight. We're sickos.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like we completely burn ourselves out being creative, and then we relax from burning ourselves out being creative by filling ourselves up by other creatives till we get so inspired that we pause it 30 seconds in and start working again. Yeah. We're not well, man.
Well, I think it's the process of creation is like you're participating in something, right? I think that we are probably designed in a way to be involved in the creation. And so, when you lose that, you're stagnant, you suffer for it. And it's so interesting because these AI company experts, when they came and talked to us, they use terms like time management or mundane tasks or things like, we're going to save you so much time. And it's like, well, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. Nobody likes rotoscoping. I get that. But there's been plenty of films back in the day when I first started out where I was just rolling cable, right? Most everybody would consider that a mundane task. But the pride that I had in the finished product, and I was like, I rolled cable on that movie. Yeah. It's like these mundane tasks to some people are extraneous and unnecessary, and yet they build character and they create the artist that you end up being. Yeah,
100%.
It's like the whole thing behind Karate Kid is like, why am I doing this? Wax on, wax off. And then at the end, you're like, oh, that's why I did it.
100%, man. And that's how anybody comes up to, like, my first job was orchestrating for a couple composers. And it's like, I would do anything to be in that room. Anything. Yeah. And like, that sort of entry level wonder is that's such an important piece of this. Like if I meet a composer that basically just like fell ass backwards into scoring blockbusters with $100 million things, it'd kind of be like, what do you mean you didn't roll cable for some guy who treated you like garbage?
Yeah. The very first thing that basically, I don't know if you do this, but this is definitely something that I do, is like if I meet a fellow creative, we almost always share battle stories first.
100%.
You're like, oh yeah, man, that thing just beat the crap out of me or whatever it is. And it's just a way of just like letting, venting a little bit,
Yeah, I was at a friend's birthday party the other day, and I was talking with one of them's a director for advertising, one of them's an editor, and we probably talked for like 45 minutes about just sharing war stories. And I'm like, are all of you guys like worried about what's in your email box right now because you're waiting on notes of the thing that you sent that you're hoping is done? Right. They looked at me like, how did you know?
Yeah.
Because that's just, we all just share that reality that we're always kind of like,
don't check it. If you don't check, it's not there.
Yeah, you can't quite relax ever. It's just, It's always there.
Yeah.
And then if you finally get to a place of like full relaxation, you're like, what did I do wrong? Why am I not doing something right now?
Yeah.
Which I had to work through in therapy. But yeah, it was helpful.
That's true. I mean, it's so interesting that we do have to sort of learn how to, switch gears.
Yeah.
For sure. But then
and it's funny because rest is like one of the most important parts, and it's like I know a lot of people like, oh, it's really hard for me to take breaks, but I think for creatives that's kind of true.
Yeah.
And taking a break is more than just like not actively doing something. It's like taking a mental break. The amount of times I wake up with insomnia and I'm like 1M7, I have to fix that like viola part because it's not right, and it's like you can't fall asleep because you're replaying 8 bars of music in your head over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like learning how to disconnect from that, like you were talking about mixed martial arts, for me it's yoga. It's like you push yourself doing something else so you just forget. Like you have to find ways, even temporarily, to completely like drain it, get rid of it temporarily. It'll be there once you're done with whatever you're doing. Take a shower, come back out, and suddenly your ideas that you did earlier aren't so bad, or they were terrible and you were right to be stressed about them. Now you can fix it.
Right.
It's hard to learn that process. It took me a really long time to find kind of the right thing that worked for me. I spent many years trying to like, I don't know if life hacking is the right word, but trying to like optimize my creativity as much as possible. And eventually I just kind of gave up on that. I'm just like, when the project comes in, I'm going to give every project the energy that it needs, and I'm going to go fully into it. I don't care if it's somebody's student film or unpaid pilot or working on a song with a pop singer. It's like, I'm giving it my 100% every time. Yeah. No more, no less sort of thing.
Yeah. This is something that I've just recently really been thinking about, which is like this pursuit of excellence, and how you do it for the pursuit itself. It's just, it is in its own reward. Yeah. And another great score, Dead Poet Society.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Oh, man, that's fantastic. But yeah, we kind of had that instilled in us when I went to this great high school, and it was very much like that, where it was just like, life is a wild journey, and you got to like just tap into it and just, like,
buckle up,
man.
Man.
What else are we going to do? Right. We're here, right? We might as well like go for it. Right.
Dude, you just never know like what bizarre thing is going to lead to something big or small. It's like, you just, like Green and Gold's a great example. So, I got a call. So the director is now a very good friend of mine, Anders Lindwall. I got a call from him. He was making a ad about 10 years ago for a Formula One racing thing. And he was basically just like, hey man, like, we're not getting anywhere with the music. I've never met you. Like his little brother, who's also a producer now, Davin, he was randomly in my freshman dorm. Okay. And like wasn't studying film or anything like that, but then ended up going off and becoming a producer. And he's like, yeah, my brother said like you guys went to school together and like you are kind of into like film music sort of thing. Like, do you want to give this a go? Yeah. And it was either like unpaid or it was like $250. It was like one of those things. But yeah, man, of course. Like I'll do it today. And sent it over, and we have done everything together since, leading all the way to like a feature. So like, it's those, you take those kind of random flyers sometimes, and it leads to huge opportunities. So
well, they say like the way you do anything is the way you do everything, right? So it's like faithful in a little, faithful in a lot. It's so interesting because I feel like that's one of the things that is so interesting about this journey that we're on, is like how things can pop up almost seemingly serendipitously, and I feel like that's something that I loved about Los Angeles, was that we can sort of like all of a sudden accidentally run into so and so, and then it's never like who you think it's going to be. It's just some person who's low key or whatever it is, and then they all of a sudden now you've your next thing that's basically paying your bills for the next 5 years was because this person recommended you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. When I was just out of college, I was working in industry pretty quickly afterwards, and I would go back and speak in this like music career class run by, he was the teacher at the time, and he would bring me back 'cause he knew me. And I would always tell the kids, like, look around the room,
Mm-hmm.
the quiet person who you think like isn't that great,
Mm-hmm.
they might be the ones who are going to like outwork you, outshine you, and in 10 years going to be like, I wish,
Yep.
like, I wish I was friends with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, you just, number one, we just perpetually underestimate people. I think that's just kind of like a flaw in humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's never who you think it's going to be that gives you those opportunities. It's always feels random,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But just be open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be open for the roller coaster that is being a creative for a living, which is inherently unnatural, in so many ways.
Yeah, it certainly is a feast or famine roller coaster. But so when you're looking to restore that inspiration, cup,
Yeah.
what are some of your go-tos? Like, what do you feel like is your, reliable
Yeah.
go-tos?
Dude, I love pop music.
Oh yeah, so you have your own.
Oh my gosh.
So I wanted to talk to you about this
Yeah.
because you have your own pop band.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. I resisted it for a lot of my formative years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always, I'd turn on the radio and somebody would be playing Kesha or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, what is this garbage? Like, let's go back to the real stuff,
Right,
and I would like put on some like progressive jazz album to impress my friends.
Yeah.
But then when Katy Perry's Teenage Dream came out, it changed everything, man.
Yeah.
I was just like, I cannot deny it anymore. This is the best music I've ever heard in my entire life.
Financed by the sugar industry. Did you know that?
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
cool.
Okay. Well, that checks out. And so, yeah, man, I fill up that cup. I like one of the artists I'm most inspired by in my career is Charlie XCX. I think that the people that she surrounds herself with, in addition to her just creative genius and utter commitment to her craft and her brand, like I'm the guy when I watch a product click, like a pop product, if it's like a big tour or it's a music video or whatever, I get like deeply emotional and I'll start crying. It's like you really did something here, and pop music has the ability to kind of make me feel that way because in so many ways it feels like the stakes are so high and then you make it work. It's kind of like when a blockbuster really works.
Pops, yeah.
Like you go and see Dune and you're like, this is an amazing work of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially when high level people are collaborating and you're just like, oh, everyone's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. So I am a producer as well. So I have a project with my older brother these days. We're called SPF 4000.
SPF 4000.
Yeah, because we're very white. This is a new one. So this is like the fourth band that I've started with my brother. Great. And it's the sound of two kids who have known and trusted each other their entire lives, kind of yes-anding each other. Honestly, like it's very much just like, what's the dumbest thing we could do right now? Let's fully commit to it.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Very Flight of the Conchords.
Exactly. And like another big inspiration is there's a hyper pop group called 100 Gex. And they're very much just like, what if we put a random grindcore breakdown in the middle of this song about Doritos? We're like, yes, do that.
That's great.
Do that. Because I think it's like, I'm such a huge fan of absurdity.
Yes. Yeah.
And utter commitment. And so I think that pop music has that ability in a similar way that film music does. It's like my favorite film scores are huge swings. Just like, why did you think that would work? I can't believe it's working.
Right.
So I'm very inspired by that. And I do think pop's a way to do that. Other things are food. Like I'm such an enthusiast about cooking and restaurants. And, I think that like the more I meet people that are doing other art forms, painting or photography or filmmaking, food, we're all the same, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that connection. And I love something like cooking. You can tap into someone's world temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
and it really makes you admire,
Mm-hmm.
like, because you can make a delicious thing. You know, every week I make bread
Mm-hmm.
for just to have around the house,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I can make a pretty good loaf of sourdough bread, and I've been doing it. I've been doing it for like 8 years now, something
Wow.
like that. But then you go to like a restaurant that makes sourdough bread,
Mm-hmm.
and it blows you away.
Mm-hmm.
And like to most people, it tastes exactly the same. You know? But it's like I love those things where when you push just a little bit, you see how impressive it is.
Oh man, the levels.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are definitely levels to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that way about sports as well. It's just like I love being in awe of people's talents and
Right.
gifts. Like
Yeah.
it's
When they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be
Yes.
doing.
It's
Yeah.
such a cool feeling, and it inspires me so much because it's like I've always known that my version of that on a smaller scale than a professional athlete is music.
Mhm.
And like it's like seeing somebody fully commit and sacrifice and do the dirty work and do the hard work and everything that happens behind the scenes that
Mhm.
has no glory.
Mhm.
That's the stuff that inspires me.
Yeah, when no one's watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's where it is.
That is where all the art shapes,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's where it is, man.
One of the scariest things that happened to me when I was first starting to make films was this idea of once I got into the edit room and, you know, all the cast, all the crew are gone, and it was just me. And it was like, oh no, if I stop doing this right now, this film ends.
Yeah.
The weight was just like, oh no. So that's why I felt like, oh, you got to have that team that's like committed. We're all going to get through the finish line together. Yeah, that's quite. I started recently working with this Michelin star chef and talk about levels, dude. I was just like, oh man, I've been living wrong. I need to eat better.
Yeah.
And yeah, it rubbed off on me for sure, which is, I just love that. I love that, like the way, if you surround yourself with the right people, you know what I mean? It totally dictates your future.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
So choose wisely.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding that sweet spot of a team that has like humility, but utter sheer dedication. That's the sweet spot, man. And it's like films particularly are just passed, like that stress is just passed from person to person to person to person to person until it's over.
Yeah.
You know, to quickly talk about the process that went into the score of Green and Gold. So it's crazy because, you know, there was like an unusual amount of time between things on that film. I got the script a long time ago, and then it was like a year before I had auditioned to score it, and then it was like another 6 months before like I found out I was able to score the film, you know. So then one day they send me picture lock on the film, quote unquote, and they say, hey, yeah, man, it's gonna be great. Like we should have like probably 6-7 weeks or something like that for the score, and it's about an hour's worth of music, and like fantastic, like let's go. I can't wait. 2 days later, I get a text, hey man, can you hop on the phone? And the director's telling me, hey, so like Indie Films, our editor has to jump on another project in 2.5 weeks. Can we send you the movie that's not done right now?
Oh, so you had to score it in pieces.
I had to score it in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
In its entirety.
Yeah.
And of course I'm going, yeah, got it. No problem.
No
problem
sleep.
whatsoever. Yeah.
Jeez.
And I just remember the producer texted me. He's like, hey man, I realized we just put like this entire movie on your back. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But like, we believe in you.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of the idea. And yeah, it was brutal, man. It was so intense. It was like, it's very much, it's that like impossible juxtaposition of like, I cannot believe I'm working on this. I'm so proud of everything that I'm doing here. The movie's beautiful. Like the performances are great. Like I'm looking up and I'm watching Craig T. Nelson, talk to me. Right. And like, it's so exciting with the utter sheer dread of what if I don't pull this off? Yeah. And it's like, every day you wake up and you're like, I have to write the most brilliant music I have ever written my entire life today before lunch, you know? And so me and the director would spend every day, I basically lived with the guy. He was in Colorado, but I was definitely talking to him more than any family member. It was like by noon, I had sent off 4 cues and gotten notes back on all of them every day. I think you learn a lot about yourself in those high pressure, high intensity moments.
Yeah.
Making silly little films.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No. Well, it's because we care so much.
We care so much.
I used to have that job I was telling you about earlier where I was doing that 6-camera setup, and you know, the email notifications on my phone would trigger like a Pavlovian, like,
yeah. Dude, that's why I got rid of an Apple Watch.
Yeah. You just got to get rid of it.
No, you can't do it.
Yeah. So it's like no notifications. Like, I'm not going to stress out because you guys are stressing out. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, dude.
You know, I was on a commercial with the director from that movie, did a commercial with him afterwards for a ski company. And I'm like, yeah, man, so how does it feel? Like the movie's in theaters, like you're like kind of wrapping this one down. And he goes, dude, you have no idea. It's like, this is the busiest I've ever been on this movie. And it's out. It's in theaters.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there's so many, like, I had no idea that was even part of the process. Like you're just like a zombie after the movie comes out and you're going around giving interviews and all of that. And, you know, I would always joke with him and his brother that like, I would tap into the movie every now and then, like, oh yeah, I'll work hard on it for a couple of weeks and then I'll write a song and then I'll go see the premiere. Even long after I had tapped out of that stress, long after I was fully recovered, he asked me, would you do another film? I said, I'd do one tonight.
Yeah.
You know, like we were in different places because he's like, it does not stop when that movie is turned in. No. And now I know that.
Yeah, I know. That's why a director has to have like a really solid producer that will remain with them by their side.
Yeah. And if you're married, a spouse, a caring, understanding spouse, you know, it's the same with music. I would be absolutely lost if I didn't have somebody to remind me to be a human being.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's so cool that you guys work together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a win. Well, man, I'm just so inspired by what you're doing, and I know that there's just so much more that you're going to be doing, and thank you so much for sharing the things that you go through and all that, because it's just, I'm just super, super inspired. Like, you know, I grew up sort of listening to these soundtracks, like, just what's the Chariots of Fire and all this sort of stuff. And like, they've made like huge impacts on me, you know?
Dude, it's film music has, like, every year we go see that John Williams show at the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah. And one time we got to take my parents are still up in the Bay Area, and they came down, and it was like, it's so, when you turn around and, like, I don't know if you've been, but when he starts playing Star Wars music, like 17,000 lightsabers go up in the air.
Yeah.
And you realize how much, you know, this guy's day job of writing, you know, John Williams says he writes 2 minutes of music a day. So it's like, okay, so you got the Imperial March. How many days is that? You know, you do the math. And it's like, that week's worth of work that he's writing the Imperial March changed these people's lives and made them dream and made them like be in awe of something and have a childlike wonderment again. And it's like, how many people get to say they get to do that? And it's like sharing that with my parents and just being like, this is what I want to do. And them being, I mean, my parents were always so supportive, but like, yeah, it's like to be able to tangibly show somebody your dream like that is so, so special.
Yeah, that is.
So hopefully I can do more movies.
You will. You're gonna do so many movies. It's gonna be ridiculous. And I'm looking forward to hearing them. So, dude, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for coming through today, and thank you for, you know, answering all my questions.
Yeah, I feel like I just rambled for like 90 minutes.
That's what this is for.
Yeah.
This is literally just for that. It's for you to vent and for for us to learn.
Yeah.
So it's very inspiring. It's very interesting, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah.
After a few other projects and everything that you want to discuss. But yeah, man, thank you so much for the education and for the inspiration.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Appreciate you.